Peter Jennings, thank you so much for joining me. Can I start with the conspiracy theory? You know, people saying, oh, this virus started in a Chinese military laboratory. What chance do you give of that being true?
Very low. Any biological weapons laboratory would be very disappointed to produce an agent that was going to kill only 1% of the population. So I don't think it's credible. I think it is far more likely to have emerged from one of these wet markets, as a number of coronaviruses have in the past from China.
Now, China, though, is it not, trying to create biological weapons, and maybe more countries than China. Is that not true?
Yes, it's very hard to find publicly available information about this, Andrew, but there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that China has a biological weapons program. The US State Department a number of years ago said as much. And it's clear that they have the scientific capability to be able to do this at an extremely advanced way, in a way that only a small number of countries would be able to. Russia would be another one. Iran is often said to have similar biological weapons programs, but I think it's highly likely that China would have similar research being undertaken.
Now, you said that a weapons laboratory would be very disappointed, to produce a virus that knocked out so few people. On the other hand, looking at the economic devastation that this virus has caused, nevertheless, what conclusions might a biological weapons researcher draw from about our susceptibility?
I think there are 2 points that are really worth bringing out here. One is that I'm absolutely sure that military organisations will be looking at this. They'll be carefully looking at the damage that is happening to military organisations themselves, having to lock down with military people with coronavirus. And they will be thinking, military planners will be thinking to themselves, wow, this would be a great way to distract states if we were getting ready to attack them. The other thing with regard to China is biological weapons program or not, I think China is now taking the view that it wants to emerge out of the coronavirus crisis more successful than any of the democracies. And it's working very hard to do that. It's trying to find strategic advantage of this and some advantage in the possibility that they have come out of this a month or two ahead of other countries. So therefore, what can they do in the developing world, for example, to now present themselves as the saviours of small countries with battling coronavirus. So, China is looking for strategic advantage, which of course is what it always does.
Now, we see that with China increasing its soft diplomacy. It's been sending all this aid, medical equipment around the world. But of course, we don't know whether people are going to say thank you for that, or blame it for the virus, or blame it for holding up knowledge in the West of what was actually going on.
I think in Australia, I really hope that this is the wake-up call we've needed, Andrew, to stop being naive about the relationship we have with China and to understand that the Chinese Communist Party is looking to gain advantage over us, not to partner with us. And I think you can see that, for example, in how the directive from the party magically went out to Chinese companies in Australia to buy up all of our medical protective equipment at the end of January, at a time when Chinese diplomats were saying, the problem is under control and there's nothing for you to worry about. So Australians, I think, are smart people, and I'm hoping that this is going to lead to a rebalancing, a more sceptical attitude towards the China relationship. In other countries, though, that might not be the case. If you look at the Pacific Islands, Papua New Guinea, elsewhere, they may just be grateful for the assistance they're receiving and the cash that's flowing into the pockets of the elites. And that is a concern. I think if China comes out of this attempting to cement more effective relations with countries in the Pacific region, that's not going to be good for our interests, and we'll need to do our best to be a more consistent and helpful friend to those countries than China ever will be.
Yes, except of course China can buy off the elites. We can't, but the public of some of those countries might have a different point of view, which leads to tensions. Peter Jennings, so glad of your insights. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Andrew. It's my pleasure.